I did some minor retooling to the 3 commander decks that I recently built based on Dominaria. There's a 4th red-green deck that I would like to build, but I don't have that commander yet. I think her name is Rada. I forget the exact name. So for now, I have these 3 decks. I've already shown videos in detail of how I build the decks. Now I'm going to talk about each one and how I have retooled it. I'm going to make one video for each one. It's probably going to be a short video, I don't really know. So let's just go through in this video and look at Jhoira. So Jhoira, or Joyride, is all about casting historic spells. So for instance, this is a historic spell. Now what's historic is legendaries, artifacts, and sagas. But a lot of the really good cards in red and blue are all about instants and sorcery. So you're kind of playing a deck that has more than one theme. So this deck is going to go for 3 separate themes and try to hit them all in a reasonable way. And in order to do that, I had to get my historic count, basically my artifact count, up at the expense of the instants and sorceries count. But again, so I'm getting a lot of instants and sorcery, so I can use some really cool cards from Return to Ravnica. And I'm also using wizards, because wizards are the tribal component for blue and red in Dominaria. So let me go through some of the substitutions that I made, and at the same time, while I do that, talk about the cards themselves. So as you saw when I previously built this deck, I had cards from Return to Ravnica that are blue-red, or blue or red, that cared about instants and sorceries or were blue-red cards, like this one. I also had historic spells, and I wanted to get my historic spell count up. I also wanted to have wizards. This guy cares about historic, so it gives you scry when you cast a historic. He has another historic spell. These are all the same that were in the deck before. But now I added this one. I forget which card I took, and this card is a wizard, so I didn't have that one before. Again, these are cards that care about instants and sorceries or historic. More wizards, cards that care about historic, cards that are historic. This one is, there really aren't that many legendaries in red and blue in Dominaria, and I'm not going to go fishing. I just want to make the deck reasonably good as a casual deck. So this card cares about historic, this card cares about instants and sorceries, and of course these are goodies from Return to Ravnica. Okay, and then this guy is a warrior, and it's got kicker, so it's good. But really it's filling in a slot from Dominaria. Now this guy is a wizard. Again, something from Return to Ravnica. A booster for historic spells. A warrior, but it's got the discard a card, draw a card trick. Very common in blue-red, and the blue-red combination of colors. Then another wizard, and another wizard, and this guy that cares about you may exile historic target permanent, and every deck needs a flyer, so that's your casual flyer. So as you saw, I made very slight changes, and so now, because I think I only changed 1 creature, now my historic count is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's not that great. It was 3. I think it was probably 4 before. I forget, but either way, that's my historic count. So now where I really upped my historic count in this deck is in the artifacts. So I did have this one originally there last build. So these cards were already there before. The wizard equipment, and the usual toolbox in red and blue, some counter spells. But I've added these 2 that enchant either blue or red cards, because I have a lot of cards from Return to Ravnica that are both, I mean, if I put both of these on a single card, it's going to be beastly. It's going to have haste and hexproof, and it's going to get counters like crazy. And again, two historic two artifacts. I had this one already there, and the same here, and the same here, and I have the general toolbox, the charms from Return to Ravnica, and additional cards from Return to Ravnica. So these cards were already there in the last build of the deck, so nothing there has changed. But one change that I did make is I took out cancel and put in the wizard prop specific counterspell, and I put in Icy Manipulator because I think I had it in another one of the decks and I took it out. It didn't make sense. As I make substitutions in one of the decks, I have cards that I can put in another deck, and that's what I just did with Icy Manipulator. So now my historic count. Oh, and I also recently pulled out of the Planeswalker deck packs. I pulled another Gilded Lotus, and so as I improve the decks, eventually, probably every single one of these commander decks will have a Gilded Lotus as I pull more cards. Again, there's no changes in these, so if you look at the previous video that I made, you'll see them there. And I discussed the mana curve there as well, so I'm not going to go into great detail here. But so we have 4, I think, in the creatures that were historic. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 and 4 is 17. So 17 cards are historic in the deck. Before, I think I was like 13. Ideally, I would want to have I don't know, everything be historic, but I really want to also use all the great instant and sorcery matters cards from sets like Return to Ravnica. There's a blue-red artifact deck in Origins, but that one, you're casting red or blue spells that create tokens, and that's not what you want. You want the historic spell itself to enter the battlefield. You want to be able to cast it, and that's what Jhoira has for us. So here it is. That's my latest retooling. I'm probably going to leave the deck as is. I think it's got enough historic and enough instants and sorceries matter. And when you go through the wizard count, it's got enough wizards in it. So it really, for a deck that is casual and that is hitting 3 separate themes, I think this is as good as it's going to get without spending a lot of money and just digging up cards that I already own.